Is Squidward gay? Is Squidward depressed? Is Squidward single? These are the questions that are going to be answered in this video. Now, we will be talking about episodes that help us understand Squidward as a character. But to understand Squidward, we need to at least go over some of his traits. He's grumpy and overall irritable because he's been working a job he feels he's above and under a person he sees as greedy and not fit to be his boss. Ultimately, he feels he's above all of that. And he is constantly fighting against his own circumstances, trying to improve himself. Ultimately, he's not happy with his life and he wants to do something about it. Actually, I would say he's downright depressed because, well, in one episode, it has him almost hanging himself. Another core aspect of his personality is his creativity. He is an artiste and a musician that kind of keeps failing at his own goals, something I believe we can all relate to. In fact, there's a lot of SpongeBob episodes where it's just time to torture Squidward, and for sure that leads to some funny moments, but it also leads him to be constantly a victim of his own circumstances. Now, this episode is probably mine and a lot of people's favorite. Before I begin to explain this wonderful episode, I need to ask you something. Have you ever failed before? I'm sure lots of us have. Squidward for sure. Kind of how the episode begins. Begins with people comparing his clarinet playing to a dying animal, which I get, but then Squilliam has him on speed dial to just hate and brag, reminding Squidward that he isn't living his dreams. Something I know a lot of us can relate to. But Squidward displays this drive to stand up for himself and try to change his circumstances and prove others wrong. Pulling together a last-minute band with his own money. By the way, he gets to work and a few pretty funny gags later, he fails again. Now, he actually, for the first time in the series, put his faith in others to form this band, and yet he fails. Still shows up to tell Squilliam that he in fact failed and his band died. But then they arrive, and what follows is probably the best musical number in SpongeBob history. Yes, this episode is essentially Whiplash, but for kids. You know, we have someone who's constantly failing, being told that they're not enough, but they still persist, like the champions they are. But seriously, this is all ultimately about failing. I know a lot of us have failed at some point in our lives, so I think it was important just to see an episode where Squidward ultimately wins, because Squidward is pretty much the definition of struggle and unhappiness in SpongeBob because of his snobby attitude, negative outlook, and real apprehension to help others. But these traits stem from a frustration of a struggling artist failing to meet his own expectations. Believe me, working at a fast food job can make anyone like Squidward, me included. And in a show that allows a lot of its episodes to torture Squidward, it's a gem to find one that actually makes him succeed in the end. Now, this episode opens up with a clear demonstration of pride, an epic monologue that challenges Shakespearean works.
Mr. Tentacles, Professor of Art. What a marvelous opportunity for the people of Bikini Bottom. Bring me your huddled masses of bored housewives, and I will shape them in my image.
And what follows is a clear example of what pride can get you in life. Crumbling works of art and a hollow void. Straight off the bat, I just want to talk about the main lesson in this story. Comparison is truly the thief of joy. Ego can only get you so far. So SpongeBob is not very smart. He's actually pretty naive in this episode, and Squidward takes advantage of that. SpongeBob is actually a genius when it comes to art that obviously overshadows Squidward's own works. And he displays a true, humble confidence within himself, never really trying to outshine his master, but instead wanting to be a perfect pupil. Squidward has tasked SpongeBob with creating a marble statue. SpongeBob looked in between the marble and himself. He looked at what the marble can be, potential that was there. He himself is the marble in this episode. He can only be shaped by the skills of his teacher, and his teacher has none. So while SpongeBob is a perfectly cut piece of marble, has unlimited potential, and could really go into any field of art that he so chooses, he's left flawed. It's no coincidence that the only flaw perceived by the Danny DeVito type of fish is Squidward's nose, and this is fatal flaw in this episode. He put too much faith in his own abilities and into his own works. Squidward, in an act of drive, trying to achieve success in his life, trying to put himself forward, selfishly says that statue was made by him. And an act of cruel fate, Squidward becomes a victim of circumstance yet again. He ruined his art students' self-esteem, but now he needs his art students' confidence to get him through this next trial in his life, and ultimately the only trial holding him back from unlimited success, fortune, and fame. But once he tries to reintroduce the ideas of unlimited creativity in his art student, it's no longer there, instead replaced by the cold, harsh art rules that Squidward has installed in him. He tries and tries as he might, he no longer recognizes his art student. And when it comes time to perform his miracle again, he fails. And now, once SpongeBob fully accepts Squidward's teachings, his works are now corrupted. No longer beautiful works of marble that rival Roman statues. Just a pile of dust with Squidward's signature nose on there. Not a coincidence yet again. So, in a fit of rage, Squidward destroys everything around him, ultimately signifying his destruction of self. His ego has cost him his fame and fortune, his hair even. It was only after ditching the rules of society, the rules of art, the rules within himself he sets for everyday life that he lets the ego fully unleash, destroying everything around him, but yet creating the most beautiful piece of work Bikini Bottom has truly ever seen. But of course, his ego gets the better of him, not listening to the art creator. So he leaves, handing the responsibility of the beautiful statue he just made to the janitor, which at the beginning of the episode was the only one to confront Squidward's outlandish dreams of fame and fortune. This episode truly represents a lot about us. Ego will only take you so far and will most certainly destroy everything you ever worked for. And a beautiful piece of marble can only be as beautiful as the artist is willing to make it. So people, pay attention to the people you let guide you in your life. And most certainly not all of them know everything. So take a deep breath and realize that the people you follow, your idols, your role models, your heroes are not perfect.